There is a major issue going on in low keys. It is not something new or anything even related to Dragonflight, and I'm sure you've seen it yourself before. This is not some breaking news situation here, but it is something that I've never made a dedicated video on, and I do want to make one on today. I'm going to show you some stuff that, we can laugh at. I really want the topic of this video's discussion to be about how this actually happens and how it can be fixed. Let's go ahead and get right into the footage. So we are back in fall. This is 14, okay? And yeah, right out of the gate, you're going to see something that is pretty endemic of the situation. If you see the issue here, like everybody is not ready for it. Everybody is in different spots. People have told me like a good way to solve this is to do a countdown, but I think like just people straight up don't know what this is or why it's happening. Because as you can see, like it's not even close to happening. Like the mage, if you look at the top, he's not even there. Like he straight up didn't even run. And now we have the problems unfolding. So we just took like a mob that should have easily been killable. Like it's not even fortified. And we turned it into a wipe. We have people arguing about it. The guy says, "Are you blind?" And then he says, "I'm gay," which honestly I've seen said on the internet. I just don't understand what that means. Is that supposed to be some kind of joke? Like I don't know why people say that on the internet. But regardless, it's creating tension in a what should be a very easy scenario here. Now you could just make it through here. The one guy made it through no problem. And Hunter, who recorded this, can easily just feign death. So it's not going to stop them. They can straight up just skip that mob regardless this way, and now everybody's going to be down here. And this is where the problem starts. So we have a recurring theme here where we just have one or two players in the group simply not knowing the mechanics, and that is why I'm making the video. Before this, they got away with it. Now all of a sudden the mechanics matter. This guy Shelob here is going to be a frequent contributor to this problem. He basically just kind of stands in the breath the whole time there and dies. Then we have the ice block thing, the necrofrost on the mage. The dude is like, he basically might as well be in Rise. That's how far away he is. I don't know, like, can he get out of this? I feel like as a mage, you probably can get out of this on your own. There's like no clear footage of this guy getting in or out of this mechanic, but I see that he has like the hypothermia debuff or whatever. And now the next time we see him, he's going to be in it again in the dead center of the room. This time he's just standing there and swirls are going to come underneath him and he's just going to die to that. Like, again, just stuck in an ice block for the whole fight. And just doesn't get out of it or get himself out of it. I don't know the reality there, but now we have a devastating situation unfolding here. Like, these people are going down. The healer has the orb currently and he is going to die and pass it to the tank. And at this point, if the healer dies, it's probably going to be a wipe because you will not be able to pass it. And the tank will get mind controlled. I've had this wipe many, many times, but because it's a low key, they're going to get away with it. And this is the topic that we're talking about. This is the theme of the video. If you can't tell, what I'm talking about here is how it's possible for Blizzard to fix this issue where players are making mistake after mistake after mistake and they're not learning from them at all. I honestly do blame Blizzard for this. Like, yes, I get it. There's a million resources out there and the players should arm themselves with this knowledge. But frankly, we have no evidence that they didn't. Like, I'm not 100% convinced that these guys don't think they know what they're doing. And I think that's the big issue here because you don't know for sure what the problems that are going to arise are until they create the problem. In season 2, we actually ran into this problem where a guy straight up did not know that as the tank in Neltharion Slayer on the worm boss that he needed to run away from the boss when it did its tank mechanic. He was under the impression that he straight up needed to tank the ability. He needed to be Ian and survive it. So when people were calling him out for dying to it, he basically just said like, sorry, I'm unable to survive this, instead of like, I messed up the mechanic. The more like serious topic here is that that guy straight up did this dungeon. He had multiple Neltharion Slayers. Like, that was not his first Neltharion Slayer ever. He straight up thought that's how the mechanic was supposed to work. The more I see footage like this, the more I'm like, I have to blame Blizzard for this at this point, right? Because if these players are actually doing the dungeon, finishing the dungeon, succeeding in the dungeon, what's going on here? It's a very hard problem to solve, and I don't have an easy solution, but I'd love to hear what you guys think on it because you're going to see this so often in low keys. This is what makes them harder than high keys. I made a video on that a couple weeks ago, and it was kind of a different topic because the players' attitudes and the way people were behaving in the low keys were what was making it so hard. But in this case, like, it's straight up just not knowing anything. Like, they don't know what they're doing at all, and the game is not teaching them in a way that is helping them improve. So, I mean, everything you saw up until this point was like, oh, that's kind of weird, that's unfortunate. Now, this is where it's going to get really bad here. So we have the first mechanic of the fight go out. It is the giant brown circle, and you're going to see that. You're going to see the Demon Hunter DPS run it into a corner instead of take it to where it's supposed to be taken. And there's no two ways around that. The guy straight up doesn't know the mechanic, right? Like, that's not an error. He didn't lag. He didn't do it. Like, he willingly ran out and took it nowhere, and then doesn't have anything to say for himself. He says, oops, like, oh, whoops, I accidentally ran the mechanic out into a corner. Whoa, that was a weird mistake. Now we have the healer dying here. At this point, I look at this as a wipe. I do not think you should continue to fight this boss with one player dead. I did not actually know that you could do it. I thought if you had only 4 players, Chromie would die. Maybe that's because of the key level, something to do with the scaling of the key level. I don't know, but you see these guys are dogpiling on him though. Like, you're such a clown. You literally ignored the mechanic, obviously not helping him learn either. I don't know if there's other like games that have stuff like this. That's very, very hard content that has timers that like you have to learn and do things well. If you guys know of games like that, like how do they punish you? But I can't help but bring it up. Like, we've been playing like Elden Ring, games like that, like Dark Souls over many years, and it feels like that game has handled difficulty perfectly. It seems to know exactly how to teach you the mechanic when you fail it. And I think the fact that it's so challenging is what makes it so unique. You have to learn from it. You're going to have to outskill it. You can't just outscale it. I think that's what's wrong with low keys in general, because the keys are just too easy. People are simply able to overpower the mechanics. Now we're going to see it again here. We have the Demon Hunter, instead of soaking the mechanic with everybody else, he's literally just standing over there, like blade dancing and doing his full rotation. Nobody says anything about that, but like, again, like the tank, actually, to his credit, he tried to explain it to him. He says, if you get the circle, go to Chromie, then after you soak the thing with the group. That's, I mean, he at least tried. Frankly, that's not going to help this guy learn this mechanic. Way too, like, not descriptive enough, but not a video with just that one guy making mistakes. We now have the mage doing his best to do the same thing like we saw in the previous boss. That guy just straight up stands in that. Watch it again. You can see the mage puts up the ice barrier. This thing just runs him over. He doesn't even try to move. This is a pretty hard mechanic, I feel like, especially if you're up close. Like, you can see the Demon Hunter DPS, like, he's doing a great job to not die here, because he is standing right next to the boss. He does die ultimately, of course, but you don't want to stand right next to the boss. The boss's hitbox is gigantic on this fight. You can stand very far away. You can be outside the target reticle and still meleeing him. So that's a nice little tip if you guys are melee, or even if you're ranged. Of course, now we have, you know, the tank saying, holy shit, like he's getting tilted. The mage says, is it bugged? I love to hear what he's asking is bugged. I think genuinely he thinks like, why is the fight still in this phase? I think he actually doesn't know that you have to out DPS the shield there. The tank says, you have to do these things. They're called mechanics. Yeah, I mean, I get it. You know, it's not on him to teach the game to the mage or the demon hunter. It sucks. But I feel like, you know, if you're in a 14 and you're being like elitist like this, like, I mean, come on, man, you're making the problem worse. This is a serious issue. It's obvious that the game is not doing what it needs to get these people the information they should be learning from. And then, you know, the culture of the game is making it 10 times worse. You're making the key harder for yourself, dude. Like, if you just actually explain these things better to these people, they would probably do it. So this time we have Bloodlust up. We're going to finally make a good pull on the fight. And you would think like, oh, the players have finally learned from their mistakes. But if you thought that, you would be wrong. So we have the soak again, and this time the Demon Hunter DPS is now soaking the tank mechanic instead of the group mechanic. I don't know why he didn't do it on the previous pull, but now he's soaking the tank mechanic. I don't know if maybe the tank whispered him or somebody whispered him and somebody told him about that, but instead of just standing there DPSing, now he's basically suicided. I mean, 2 massive mistakes. And then again, the tank really helps out. He says, holy shit, you're a clown, in all capital letters. The sad part, the thing that actually like kind of makes me upset, is the guy just says sorry. He doesn't want to be dead. He doesn't think he's doing anything wrong, probably. He just doesn't straight up know it. Like, we've talked about this a lot, where like people are like, these guys don't know the mechanics. We're talking about that in like a 26 or something like that. They obviously know the mechanics. They just made a mistake. That's not what's happening here. This guy doesn't know the mechanics, and he's doing a 14 fall. Frankly, if you look at the other encounters, I think you could make a case for him not knowing those either. They just don't matter as much. They do not, like, him making mistakes does not wipe the group. Now, what's potentially more comical here is that they continue on. I really do think you should just wipe this, but like, I guess at this point, if they do want to upgrade this key, this is the only choice they have. They still have 4 people alive. I guess, yeah, they're fine. So Chromie's going to survive. I guess as long as Chromie's healed up to full, 4 people is all you need. You only need 3 people to soak it. They're going to do it, no problem. And, you know, the healer's actually fine on mana. Usually this fight gets really long and really arduous with a lot of people dead, but I guess since it's only a 14, like, it's fine. Mana is totally not an issue here. It's almost surprising to see the end of the encounter. Like, they fought this boss for so long. It's almost a 4-minute encounter at this point, but finally the end is going to come, and we have the burn phase, which I have seen wipe to many times, coming up right now. And we, you know, are on a 14. I don't expect to wipe to it even with 4 people, but we are going to have a very unique mistake here. Now, can you see what just happened? Let's slow it down. I'll show you exactly what happened. So we're all standing in the bubble. This bubble is how you get the buff that makes the fight doable. And you may see immediately the mage walks out of the buff. He straight up leaves the buff. Not only does he leave, like look at the health bars, look at maybe up here. He like left. Like he's like in, again, he's in rise. He's so far away that he's not in range of this guy's frames. That's how far away he is. He's like 30 some yards away. I'm not even sure he's attacking the boss from back there, but as you can see, like the DPS difference means like obviously he's not getting the buff. And yeah, they're gonna wipe to that. On a 14, they're gonna fail to break the like shield on like the burn phase of the fight. And then the chat does what it does best. The tank says, "You got to be shitting me, mage. What the fuck are you doing?" And then the healer says, "Mage runs away from the bubble Lameo." And then again, a spot of sadness in my heart because the mage just leaves. Probably a shame leave. The guy totally doesn't want to deal with the fact that they're flaming the other guy and now he's being flamed. But then again, you see the chat. Ha 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 from the priest, fucking knobs. Literally fucking clowns, the guy says. "Run Mythic 0, you fucking dumbasses." So this is the video. We're making a video about people making silly mistakes. Yes, it's funny. I mean, honestly, I don't really even find this funny because of how sad this is. These guys straight up do not know the mechanics, and the game and everybody around them is making it worse. I just don't know how to solve this. Like I said, the easy answer is like, it's on them 100%. They need to be doing research. They need to be studying up. But like the way I look at it is it's on the fact that Blizzard is actually rewarding them at some point. He's playing the game. He's 2K score. He has actual keys done. And the question I have is like, when is it, you know, the incentive to learn outside the game versus to just learn from your mistakes in the keys? When is that like cross over that improvement threshold that everybody needs to understand? Because that's what I fear the most, that there's people out there doing low keys and they're like, well, that went well, you know what I mean? And in reality, they made a ton of mistakes that are just going to hurt them in a couple hours when they do a higher key. It's got to be such a morale killer. Like, I feel like it's got to be the worst feeling in the game if you're somebody who's maybe a little anxious, who's struggling with the progression of the keystone system, and then all of a sudden they go into a higher key and they just start getting blasted. Now, I've seen this conversation happen a lot, and I never really understood what the heart of it was, but I now think I understand fully. When people say, man, a 15 is so much harder than a 10, or I'm getting my ass kicked in a 15, blah, blah, blah. I can't believe how hard they are. When people talk about low keys being like really hard and they're surprised by it, I think it's genuinely that they just don't know that they're making mistakes the whole way. The low keys are not punishing people enough. The way a video game works, it reinforces your learning. There's psychology that's at play. Blizzard knows this, and they're choosing to leave these low keys be this easy, so easy to upgrade. I mean, you can easily double upgrade pretty much every key up into maybe even 19 range. And it's just creating this cyclical situation where these players are getting pushed higher and higher and higher, and they're just not learning. They didn't learn anything from the lower key. So how would I fix this? The way I would fix this is by squishing the key range entirely. What this does is it means every time you upgrade a key, it matters much, much, much more. So if this guy did a 5, then a 7, then a 9, then an 11, then a 12, then a 14, then a 15, he didn't learn from 8 of those. You know what I mean? Like, he got from 0 to 15 and did not learn these mechanics. So instead, make like the jump from a 2 to a 3 be astronomical, like way, way, way higher. So every key that you do, you have to actually be learning from. There's not this weird base layer where you're spending like dozens of hours on keys that are not challenging. Because I think that's the real thing. Like, it's still hours. Like, even though it's easy, it still costs your actual free time. And so like then saying like, oh, this guy should be spending his free time learning. Well, but we don't know how much free time this guy has. Like, if he actually spends like 2-3 hours learning these dungeons on YouTube, is he actually then even going to go do the dungeon? Like, does he have that kind of time? Who knows? Instead, he's investing time in the game, and the game should be the best teacher, but it's just not upholding its end of the bargain. And I do think, yeah, the only way to solve this is to make low keys harder, to make each step matter more, so people are not jumping from 0 to 15 without actually knowing any mechanics at all. And I think you'll solve the toxicity, quote unquote, like the arguments that come up, because instead you'll have a difficult environment from the ground up. Like we were talking about with Elden Ring or the Dark Souls games, like your first playthrough, you get your ass kicked. There's not at any point in that game where you can just be skating by and then all of a sudden you hit some crazy wall that you didn't see coming. The difficulty curve of the game is out of whack. And this is a problem like with honestly every facet of the game. You could say the same thing about LFR, even normal raid. You could say the same thing with like just actual the second you start the game versus the time you get to end game. Like leveling a character, when are you going to face challenge? We're talking about this all the time in the leveling channel. The game's got a serious problem with introducing difficulty to players, and I think it's on Blizzard to fix this. So I don't know, you guys tell me. I just want to do a little rant on this, but if you guys know people who are out there in this boat who are struggling to do low keys and are telling you, man, I can't believe how hard that 15 I just did was, this is why they're saying it, because they actually just don't know what they don't know. Show them this video, open them up to this conversation, come in here, talk about it. Let me know what we can change as a community. Let me know what the game can change to make you more aware of things you do not know at a low key level. Rant over. Thank you for watching. We will see you guys in the next one.